Hi guys, today I'm going to be showing you one of the games I made on Scratch called Lemon Shooter. It's basically a game where you shoot lemons as this little lemon shooter. And I have showcased it a bit in a previous video. For this video I'm just going to be showing you some of the base code. So to begin, I'll go to the when green flag clicked. So what I did was first, when green flag clicked, I would do game begin, which is a custom block I've made. Since it's not in the actual Scratch UI until I made it, I'll explain what it does. It's made up of other custom blocks that are used to basically start the game. Related to movement, related to the actual laser that fires the lemons, related to the screen whenever it shakes the screen and stuff like that, and just work in progress. So first I'll start with the movement. Down here on my define custom block movement, I just set these variables that are related to movement. Like for example, in air resistance, I set it to 0.9, which is basically how fast or how slow the player goes, or how fast they slow down. Be warned, if it's lowered too much, then the shooter won't move too much, and it's only related to the normal playstyle. It sets the speed variable, which is related to both the normal playstyle and modified playstyle, to 0.5. Sets speed X, which is related to the normal movement only, to 0, and so is it setting speed Y to 0. And it would set the playstyle to modified because it's a bit more controllable than the normal playstyle. But if you want to switch it up, as far as I'm sure, Z will set it to modified and X will set it to normal. And that's how I set this playstyle to the default. Then we're going to laser, which is just basically setting the fire rate to -1. The fire rate is basically how fast the lasers shoot. Then there is the screen related custom block, which sets shake dx and shake dy to 0, and these two variables are used to shake the entire screen when one of the biggest lemons explodes. And the WIP, which is short form for work in progress. I first set inf_val, which is short for infinite value, to infinity. The reason I had made this, and the reason it's not in the main game, is I'll show them now. The reason I wanted to make it was so that I could have basically forever loops using the repeat block. And the way I'm able to search this block up right now is because I'm using Scratch add-ons. It's a Google add-on. So in the main game, in the main Scratch, you can't do it, but if you have it, then you can do Control Space bar. And I was thinking maybe, for example, I could have done something that moves it or something like that, but for some reason it just lagged way too intensely, so I threw that in the work in progress. And also here was the mute variable. I tried doing it so I could mute it, but I haven't been able to implement it, so it wasn't been able to be done. But I haven't worked on this for a while, and if you want, you can see this. If you just do when M key pressed, or whichever key you're using to mute it, just go to sound, and set volume to go to operators, put a minus variable, a subtraction operator, set the first numerical input to 100, and set this and drag this little volume oval inside of the second. So basically what it does, it sets the volume to 100. If it's unmuted, it sets the volume to 100 and removes the volume amount from it, which is basically 100 minus 100, setting it to 0. And then it sets, and if it's already muted, it sets it to 100 minus volume again. And since volume is 0, it does 100 minus 0, which is 100, which is a neat trick I learned from the Scratch forums. So after the game begin, back to the green flag, there is some basic stuff. Go to front layer, because if you haven't shot the lemons too much, or you just don't, or you shot them a bit too much, then it will just overlap the entire player and you won't be able to see it, which is why I made it so the player is going to the front layer. And I am aware that the lemons don't hurt it yet and the player doesn't have health, but I'm going to be implementing that very soon since it's still in beta. There's go to 0, 0, which is the middle of the map. And here's a block that I thought might help, but since the playstyle is modified when it starts, and this because it looks at the mouse in general, it kind of won't work, because 45 degree pointing in the 45th degree is pointing that way, but when I start the project, it's facing this way because it's trying to follow my mouse, which is why I'm still keeping it here just in case, but it still doesn't work. Now this is where I actually move. So I have a forever loop, and the first thing I have in the forever loop is a custom block that I made called move X. Now, to show what move X is, I'll scroll down. One sec, it's kind of hard to find some things here, and there's move X. So basically what it does is it changes speed X, which is it changes speed X, which is actually related to the modified movement in some situations, to the actual speed variable multiplied by the joystick X, which is this numerical input. So basically if I set the numerical input to 1 or 10, then it would set my speed 0.5 multiplied by 10, which would be it would be speed 5, or it would set it to times 1, which is just 0.5. Then there's the air resistance. Again, it's only related to the normal playstyle, but it sets speed X, not change, sets speed X to the air resistance multiplied by speed X. And then it just changes X by speed X plus shake dx. That is because whenever it shakes, it needs to make sure that it moves in a certain direction whenever the screen shakes. And a neat trick that I've done with this, and I will mention this in a future video for advanced moving. If you do this specific script, key D pressed, which is the right key basically, and key A pressed, which is the left key, it will basically sets into a numerical value. Here, I'll give an example. So I'm just gonna make an example variable, and I will I'm going to show the example variable. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll up and I'm going to set where is it? Okay, exe, there. I'm going to set exe, well, I'm just calling it like the example, to key D pressed minus key A pressed. I'm going to get a forever loop around it. So now it's going to keep on going forever. If I hold the D key, it is set to 1. Normally, if you set it to like key D pressed or something like that, it would be set to false until I press it. I'm holding it right now, so it's set to true. But since we're using an operator, which is like the subtraction operator, then Scratch knows we're playing with numbers here, so it'll set it to 1 if I'm pressing the D key, and set it to -1 if I'm pressing the A key, which is how I'm able to make the character move in a sort of compact way. Then I check if the playstyle. Now first I'm going to make sure that when the game starts forever, MoveX is set to the blank variable, so it doesn't move until one of these are detected. If the playstyle equals normal, then it will move Y key W pressed minus key S pressed, which means it will move you up when the key W is pressed, even if you're facing this way, and it'll push you down if you're holding the S key and you're facing that way. And if your playstyle is modified, then I have my own custom block, move Y2. And how move Y2 works is just all it does is move speed multiplied by 10, all multiplied by joystick Y2, which is this. So it's basically the exact same. And change X by shake DX, change Y by shake DY, which is something I kind of winged, but it still worked either way. And then I make it so that it's always pointing towards the mouse pointer, and the shoot custom block, which is just like if the fire rate is greater than 0, then it'll change fire rate by -1, so it'll shoot it'll shoot faster. And if it's not, then check if the space key is pressed or mouse is down. Then it'll create a clone of the laser sprite, and it'll set fire rate to 1, which is basically a sort of timer, letting it not just completely spam and overpass the Scratch 300 clones limit, which would be bad. And this is when I receive shake message, and if it does, then it's going to set shake DX to the sign of direction. Now, I don't completely know what that does, mostly because I used a tutorial for the base code, and the same with shake DY, except the cosine of direction. Again, I don't exactly know, but that is it. And it'll shake, the custom block shake, it'll set the DX of shake to -16, and the DY of shake to -16 again. And all the shake variable does is set shake DX to shake DX multiplied by DX, which is this, and it'll set shake DY to shake DY multiplied by DY. And it'll just wait 0 seconds twice, which basically waits for 2 screen refreshes to actually work again. And then it just repeats this 16 times. It'll shake, it'll pick a random variable from -0.5 to -0.8, and again 0.8, 0.5. which is going to shake it in a random direction. And I forgot to mention that over here it said it lowers it down to negative 1.8 and negative 1.8. And after this is done repeating, it sets shake to both 0 and 0. That's all there is for the WASD character sprite, which is what I named it. And for the laser sprite, it has way less code, even though it still does have a lot of code. I mean, even though the WASD sprite doesn't have much either, but still, yeah. When the green flag is clicked, we're hiding the original laser because we don't want it to be actually showing, only the clones of it. When it starts as a clone, it'll wait until it's touching my lemon. I named it Lemon Practice because I was practicing trying to draw a lemon. It'll wait 0 seconds to wait for another screen refresh, which is like a game frame. As I've mentioned in my gravity tutorial, what a game frame is, which is basically something that happens so fast you don't notice it. And then it'll delete the clone. Mostly because when it touches the lemon, it doesn't want to go through the lemons until it obliterates them all. And then when it starts as a clone again, it'll start the sound laser shoot 16, which if I drag out over here and I play it, that's the sound for the laser shooting. It'll go to the player. It'll point in the direction of the player. It will show itself, and it'll repeat until it's touching the end. It'll move 11 steps, change X by DX, and change Y by DY, and then it'll delete this clone. The rock sprite I was thinking of using, but turns out it was completely useless. So it's nothing. It's really nothing. And this is the work in progress sprite with a lot of things that I was thinking of using with another one of these Scratch add-ons, which is the logs and stuff like that, but for some reason it didn't work. This is a little surprise I have, and I want to figure out if you guys can figure it out, which is why it is a surprise. This is the sprite just showing whether or not to like press Z or press X to work. And what I'll do is when the Z key is pressed, it will do a verify custom block, which is just going to check if playstyle equals normal, then it'll set playstyle to modified. And when X key is pressed, it'll just verify again. If playstyle equals modified, set playstyle to normal. This is my lemon practice. There is also a bit of code here, but I have a feeling we could get through it quickly. What it's going to do is first it's going to switch itself to the lemon's costume. It's going to go to the back layer, which is again going to be chaotic. If it was on the front layer, it'll set its size to 300 because the actual sprite itself is really small. So we're multiplying it times 3. And it'll hide just like the laser sprite because we only want the clones of the lemons to come out. But because if we didn't hide, then we would need to make hundreds of these lemon sprites, which would take a bit too long. It'll wait 2 seconds, and forever it will use a custom block called n.e, which is just a short form for new enemy. It'll switch its costume to big, which is basically, you might not be able to see it, but if I zoom out, it's bigger than the entire canvas itself. But it switches so fast that you don't notice it, because if I go to edit, okay, you still don't see it, mostly because it switches back when it's really quick. These are some codes that I thought would work, but it doesn't really work too much. It'll go to x00, it will set its direction variable, and it'll pick random negative 180 to 180. It'll point in direction variable, and it'll move negative 350 steps. So it'll go forward again. And again, the rare chance variable and stuff like that, it doesn't really work. And it'll switch costume back to lemon, so it doesn't like glitch out or anything. And it sets its health to 15. If the big lemon is shot 15 times, it'll turn into small lemons. When the speed, it'll set the speed to 1, and it'll create clone of myself, which is the actual thing itself, the actual lemon. By the way, this is the delay on how fast the lemon floats towards, how many times the lemon spawns. If this wasn't there, then there would be hundreds of lemons in less than a second. And this is a little sort of a surprise I've added, but if I do this, it summons all of the lemons to the middle, and it brings that one little smiley face. It'll go to XY00, show, it'll switch costume to costume 2, wait 2 seconds, switch costume back to lemon, and it'll hide itself. And when it starts as a clone, it'll show forever. It'll set brightness effect to 0. If touching laser, then set enemy hit. If enemy hit, if health is greater than 0, then start sound explosion 2, change health by -1, set brightness to 100, and stop the script. Start sound, and if the size is greater than 250, then it'll start explosion sound explosion 18, which if I play, that's when the lemon actually explodes. Set health to 4, which is the small lemons. It adds it adds 2 to a list called, which is basic. It's just there to set like the actual explosion, and it'll broadcast shake, which is mentioned before in player. If it's else, then and it's like smaller, then it'll start that explosion when they explode, and it's going to be a tinier explosion, and it adds 1 to the explosion list, and it'll make a smaller explosion. It'll add its X position to the bang variable. It'll add its Y position to the bang variable. It'll set its size to its size divided by 2. And if the size is less than 35, then it'll delete itself. Otherwise, there will be too tiny to see. It'll set speed to speed multiplied by 1.5. It'll set direction to pick random 0 to 180. Sorry if I'm rushing this, but this is kind of a long script. It'll create clone of itself. It'll set direction to 120. It'll create a clone of itself again. It'll set direction to 120. If the size is greater than 250, then it starts explosion 18, set health to 4, add 2 to the bang list, else start sound explosion 6, add 1 to bang list, add X position to bang list, and add Y position to bang list. It'll set its size to size divided by 2. If size is less than 35, again delete its clone, and set speed to speed multiplied by 1.5. Set direction variable to pick random 0 to 180. Create clone of myself, set direction to 120. Create clone of myself, set direction to 120 again. The lemon has nothing in it because this was the original one I had to use. In all audio, there's nothing else except all of the sounds like the background music, the laser shoot, the explosion 2, and explosion 18. And this might be kind of hard to hear, but if you can, that would be great. That is basically the beginning. There's the laser shoot sound. There's the explosion 6, which is for the little lemons. the one when it actually gets hurt, and when a big lemon explodes. For Sprite 2, it used to be the mute variable, but turns out like the mute and unmute the mute and unmute button, but for some reason it just didn't work, so I'm just leaving it there. Sprite 3 is just for like unused variables, just in case it's needed. And for the explosion, there are only 3 pieces of code. When green flag clicked, hide. It'll delete all of the bang list. It'll forever. If the length of the bang list is greater than 0, then it'll switch costume to item 1 of bang list. It'll set X to item 2 of bang list. It'll set Y to item 3 of bang list. Delete, and then it'll delete item 1 of bang list 3 times, and it'll create a clone of itself. And this was supposed to be like a test. Turns out, and it's not supposed to work anymore, so I'm going to disconnect it. And when I start as a clone, show, point in direction, pick random -180 to 180, wait 0 seconds, which is the wait for 1 refresh. If costume number equals 2, then repeat 4 times, it'll turn itself in 1 degrees 4 times. And this is the first costume, which is for the little lemons. The second one for the bigger lemons. And this one I thought it would work out, but turns out it doesn't. So I'm not gonna I'm gonna try and mess with that later. And after all of these are done, it'll delete this clone. Sorry if this was a sort of a long video, but if this was able to help you in any way, please like the video and subscribe. It doesn't take too much time, and it does help a lot. That is all for the video. I will be coming up with a new series for a game that I'm thinking of pretty soon. And if you're excited for that, then it's going to be happening really soon. See ya.